Now there's a steal by Bird. Underneath the DJ, lays it in.
Pierce for three. It's good. Tatum puts up a three.
Welcome to the Celtics Rewind. I'm JP.
And I am Nat the GM. What's up, y'all?
Hey, Celtic fans. This is episode 15 of the Celtics Rewind, talking all things Boston Celtics. Happy All-Star game break and everything before everything comes back on Thursday. JP, the franchise, is here. I got Nat the GM with me, my co-host. Nat, how you doing?
I'm doing good. There's no basketball this week, JP. I'm dying here.
Well, I just have to just like enjoy the Giannis documentary that came on and stuff. So maybe that could help me with that, and then also another special that came on this weekend during the All-Star game that I've been watching hundreds of times though, but we'll talk about it though. So yes, but we got a special guest. We got a in the building. Like, he used to be a former video coordinator, 14 years with the Portland Trailblazers, especially in the Damian Lillard era. And now he's the chief executive officer of Getting the Game One on One. And it's like I tell you, like I took his class a couple weeks ago, and it's just dope. All the people that he brings on and just helping with lessons of how to get into the NBA, or how to get into basketball in general, just dropping gems. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And I gave my testimony and everything. Y'all definitely have to check it out. I have John Ross in the building. John, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's awesome to be on here with you guys. So thanks for having me.
Get you coming on and everything. So let's go ahead and get into it. Like you said, there's no basketball, but we definitely had the All-Star weekend, starting, with the celebrity game, the Rising Stars, skills challenge, on to the All-Star game. John, if you want to give a rating of the All-Star weekend in terms of the festivities, what rating would you give it out of a 10?
I'm gonna go with a 5. so uh, it's actually so like coming from working in the NBA for 15 seasons. I never watched All Star Weekend. Growing up as a kid, I loved All Star Weekend. Like I block out my whole weekend to watch that. Once I worked in the NBA, that's like my weekend off. So I never would watch it. But now that I'm out of the NBA, I watched it. I enjoyed the 3-point contest. I enjoyed, the slam dunk was okay. The skills competition was not good at all. I didn't know why they were passing the ball through a big hoop. I was like, this ain't football. Like, at least do like a Kevin Love outlet pass or something. And the game itself, I feel like they need to just accept it for what it is. Like, it seemed like Commissioner Silver was disappointed in them not competing, but it's like that's just not going to happen. Like, as many activities and functions that they're going to all weekend and protecting their bodies, like you're just not going to get them to play hard. So you might as well just embrace the half court shots and the behind the back passes and everything they want to do, and just figure out how to make it a more enjoyable experience. So 5 out of 10.
Hey, that's better than what I was about to give it though. But hey, Nat, what is your rating of out of 10 for the All-Star weekend? What you think?
So the All Star weekend sucks. We have to be honest about this. I give it a 3 out of 10. Um, the only reason I care to watch the All Star game is because I love the 3-point contest. I live for that contest year in and year out. That everyone that they usually have competing is usually like it's spicy. It's the spiciest event like of the weekend if you think about it. Um, I lived for what's it, Stefan versus Sabrina. I lived for that. That was awesome. And it was so fun. And she scored 26 points and she matched everybody else of the night except for Steph Curry. He's just the best, 3-point shooter of all time. It's just I don't see that really changing. But um it's hard with the all-star game because it's like there's some stubbornness going on with Adam Silver right now, and it's like the way that it's structured now, it doesn't work. It's not entertaining. We're literally just watching celebrities and ball players that we love. We're watching them essentially just be cool, or just see them outside of their own home jerseys. And it's getting boring. That's what's happening. I would love for the NBA to, adopt the all-star weekend half court play where it's like a 3-on-3 or a 5-on-5 or something like that. And then, the knockout rounds. One team gets knocked out, move on to the next team. That team gets knocked out until you have a winning team, and just 3-on-3s or whatever like that. To me, that's more fun because I think that half court wise, the guys would care more. You would see guys, really showcase their skill and their talent. You would get to see probably your Steph versus Dame that you really want to see, your Trey versus De'Aaron Fox one year or something like that. You get to see that stuff, as opposed to it being so many guys going full court, that they're not going to go full press. And also maybe putting some money up. The NBA has it. The guys, you will play for money. If you put up money and you say the best team, the gets like $1 million or $500,000, those guys are going to play. So it just needs to be restructured, and also, maybe implementing more all stars. I think that the list is a little too short too, with the guys that do make the all star team. I think that there's some guys that could have made it. Sabonis, it's hard for me to look at the all star weekend and not see his face. It's weird, but just something like that. And I think if you do that, the ratings are going to skyrocket, and you're going to tune in literally every year to see those contests.
So would they go into like they do with like with the Pro Bowl, like they select the players that deserve it, because they had a really good year, or it could be like, the stars, that they want to see for
Mhm.
the ratings and stuff. And you see that some of the stars decide to not go to the Pro Bowl, do any events, they'll just go and on vacation, and just relax, and get ready for the off season so they can get into championship mode next year and stuff. Will we see that in the NBA? Where we see like like a LeBron James or a Kevin Durant, for example, just kind of just taking the initiative, like, nah, I won't participate in the All Star festivities and all that. I appreciate being selected as an All Star, but I'm gonna go ahead and take a vacation before we get back into the second half of the season. Are we ever going to see that?
Um, I'll answer that. I don't know. I don't think so. I think that when it comes to the NBA, the guys enjoy it too. It's big for them. You get to, see guys that you've grown up in the league with, the younger guys, and you get to interact with fans differently. I don't know. I think that what I've seen over the years and the decades, they enjoy it. They really do. It's just a matter of the structure, and that's not necessarily on them. They could say what their opinion is, but it's just the structure. If they change the structure, it'd be great for everyone, and I think the guys would enjoy the competition as well. So but I don't see that. I think that all the big names and everyone you want to see, they're always gonna show up.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I just think I don't know what the CBA is, but I'm guessing those players are pretty much required to be there. If you make an
Mhm.
all-star team and decided not to, I don't think
Yeah.
the league would be having that because they wouldn't want that to become a trend where players started sitting out. So there's got to be something where they basically require those players to be there. Because if not, I feel like a player already would have been like, "I'm good. I'm going to go on vacation." But
Mhm.
there's got to be something there where they're basically they have to be there.
Yeah, I agree with that too as well. And then speaking of Steph versus Sabrina, it just can't. It was just so good
Mhm.
and just unfortunately, just controversy just comes out of it as Kenny Smith, one of the people from inside the NBA, former Houston Rocket, made some comments that a lot of people on social media just kind of just it just blew up, and then everybody just getting into arguments about what he was saying and what he was actually saying. So during the broadcast after Steph Curry won the challenge and stuff, Kenny was saying like to Sabrina, he said that Sabrina should have shot from the 3-point line that the women shoot from to, eliminate advantage, for, Steph Curry. And a lot of people took that as like sexist and like, why would you say something like that? Nat, what's your reaction or what did you take out of his comments, of Kenny Smith's, comments about Sabrina?
Uh, it was ignorant. It was very ignorant, and I don't think there's any way you can say it, and there's no excuse for it because again, she matched everyone else but Steph Curry, so she did just fine. She did more than fine, if she had shot 10, for whatever and only had like those 10 points, I would still say, did she practice? Like, what? How did you take it serious? Did you come out here and just shoot? Because then I can go back and say there's a lot of guys that competed in the 3-point contest and they scored lower than 20. They scored about 16 and they got knocked out in the first round. Guys that could shoot very well all year round. At the NBA 3-point line. So it was ignorant. It was sexist. We have to call it what it is. There was no excuse for it, especially when he makes the comment, but then you look at her score and it's like, what did she do wrong? She lost, of course, but she lost to Steph Curry by 3 points, might I say. You know, and if you put Steph Curry in that 3-point contest with the rest of the guys, he would have won. So therefore, she didn't do any worse than anybody else that was competing. If you think about it, so there was no point for the comment. It was ridiculous, honestly, and if you look at the ratings, for Steph and Sabrina, it was like the highest rated, event. If you think about it, people wanted to see, those WNBA stars and those NBA stars together, and the WNBA has done great this year as well. With marketing, it's had such a good year, but that's what you want to see. You want to see, the women also there and having fun, and you got great results. So he just dampened the moment with ignorance, and he also, stood very tall on the comment and he did not take it back. So he's standing tall and firm in his ignorance. And, I don't think there's any place for that, especially when you love basketball. If you're gonna love basketball, you love anyone who's playing it, whether it's male or, man or woman. So that's my comment.
As well. Phenomenal competition. Like I love that Sabrina and Steph decided to go head to head. I feel like the biggest supporters of the WNBA have been NBA players through the year, and just to see, I would love to see more of the interaction at the All Star Game, more competitions. Um, so I would love to see Caitlin Clark versus Dame Lillard next year. I say, let's keep growing that aspect. So props to both of them, and I thought Sabrina was just phenomenal. Just to come out there, I mean, I'm sure there had to be all kinds of nerves and pressure to come out and just drill the first rack. I was like, dang. Uh,
Hmm.
Kenny's comments, I read, the follow-ups, the background, everything. Kind of like you said, it would have none of it needed to be said in the first place. It added unnecessary commentary. I would say I understood his what he was, I think, trying to say, which was that Steph's used to shooting at this line, she's used to shooting at this line. She might have hit 30 if it was from the line, but it's just an unnecessary comment that kind of took away from what she did accomplish, which was, like you said, unreal. That like she matched Dame Lillard, who won the 3-point contest. Um, so I just think like, yeah, just it was a comment that took away from what she did accomplish, and what she did was unreal, and I personally hope to see more of that.
I agree with you. The one thing that's really interesting before Kenny made those comments and stuff was that Sabrina actually wanted to shoot from the NBA 3-point line and stuff to, make it fail, against Steph. And she can shoot beyond it. If people watch, a WNBA game and stuff, she shoots really far,
Mhm.
away from the WNBA 3-point line. So it was just kind of like unnecessary. And like you said, John, he follow up with he kind of just doubled down his comments, but he was like, well, I was defending Sabrina. People who know basketball understood what I was talking about and stuff. It's like, no, like, you made a comment that should have just been put to sleep and put away and stuff. But the easiest thing is that, we got the remote button. All we had to do was mute it. That's all we had to do. Just mute. We didn't have to hit Kenny Smith and all that because, yeah, it was just unnecessary for real though. But you know what was the crazy thing too is that, so it was in Indiana, and Larry Bird, legendary Boston Celtic, he would rarely make public appearances and stuff, and he was there with the special. That was probably my favorite part of the All Star weekend, was the special with him, Isaiah Thomas, and Reggie sitting together. That was great. I really loved that. He got Legend of the Year too as well. But just hearing that he never met
Hmm.
Jayson Tatum, until this All Star weekend, and it's like everybody, like Celtic fans, which is going crazy. Like, that's crazy that Larry Bird met Jason
Yeah.
Tatum for the first time this weekend and stuff. And everybody was like, the Boston Celtic management needs to do a lot better. They need to bring more Larry Bird in and stuff like that. Or I hear comments saying, oh, well, Larry Bird should we come to more Celtic games and stuff like that. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy, but it was a really great moment, and Jason was starstruck, and Jaylen Brown was too as well, to meet the legendary Celtic. But could we see, like, in future, that Larry Bird be coming to more Celtic games? I know he's a consultant for the Indiana Pacers, so I don't know if it's going to be in his contract to go to more Celtic. But will we ever see in the future to see a Larry Bird go to a Celtic game?
I think that when it comes to Larry Bird, he doesn't make many appearances. That's the thing. He doesn't make many appearances. I could
No, he
see if
doesn't.
he was
Hmm.
seeing, I don't even think he sees his own team, as much as you think he does. He's just not a guy that's very public, and he's been like that for a while. So I actually didn't have a problem with it. I could understand it, why it's his first time meeting Tatum. I can kind of understand it because Tatum has met so many other greats from the Celtics organization. He's done their podcasts, they've come to the facility and they've practiced together, they've worked out together. So actually, Boston has done actually a pretty good job with the legends and with the '08 Celtics team and mixing with the new guys. I think they've done a great job. I just think that it's just the circumstance. It's Larry Bird. He's not a public one of those public legendary NBA players. He's just one of those guys that's low key. Excuse me, when you see him, and then that's okay. But it was great that Jason got to see him. I also wonder if when you see a legend like that, do you behind the scenes talk to him? Because I'm about the knowledge of the game. Are you asking what was it like, or what did you feel, on your runs for a championship, and what is something I can take with me, and I hope that those legends give that kind of knowledge, like Larry Bird. So, but it was awesome that they got to meet finally.
Yeah, I was pretty
Hmm.
surprised that they hadn't met, but also not shocked because, like you said, Larry's a pretty private person. But that was really cool to see. So I actually grew up just 30 minutes north of Terre Haute, where Indiana State is. So
Mhm.
we grew up on Sunday afternoons going to Larry Bird's restaurant and shooting free throws there. They had a hoop inside
That's
the
awesome.
restaurant, and yeah. So I've always been a huge fan of Larry Bird, and so it was really cool, like this weekend, to just see him involved in so. I mean, it was cool. Like him and Reggie Miller and Isaiah Thomas and just really doing the whole Indiana thing was, fun for someone like myself who, I'm from literally like Hoosiers. Like I grew up in the cornfields. Like we played against
Yeah.
them in high school, like the Milan. And so like,
Mm.
I
Extra and blue chips.
Oh,
So like all
wow.
that stuff is
I did
in.
not know that. Really? Wow.
Yeah, fun fact. I was yeah, I was a fourth grader, and my uncle taught at the high school, Frankfort, Indiana,
Wow.
where they were filming it. So he got us tickets that were basically courtside that we got to at the end of the game when they throw the lob to
Yeah.
Shaq and he dunks it, we get to rush the court.
Oh.
So I made sure to sprint on the court and jump on Shaq. Must have got edited out. I didn't see myself amongst the group, but I know I'm down
Oh,
there.
man, that's a fun fact. I did not know that. That's awesome. That is really awesome. And Blue Chips is one of my
John, do you
favorite
share
Yeah.
that
movies too.
story often? You
No,
gotta
not
share
too
that
often,
more.
no,
Like,
but it's definitely a fun
That is
moment.
awesome. Oh man, that is so awesome. And then, I just love the fact that he came out and said, I would love to see the players compete and stuff. Well, that didn't really happen in an all-star game. I mean, they won 86 to 211 points. I mean, that's a lot of points right there. And I mean, just see them legend faces. You seen Oscar's face. That was just like he was disgusted. Larry tried to he tried to hide the madness inside himself just to watch it, but he was just like, "Man, what is this, man? What is this All-Star game and all that?" And hopefully we'll be able to see the All-Star kind of be competitive, but I also understand it from the other side, like, the players don't want to get injured so that they can be ready for the second half of the season. So it's like a double standard and all that. Like fans is upset, but like they have to understand the players can't be hooked because if they get hooked during the All-Star game, then there goes the second half of the season. So I
mhm.
guess it's like it's a double standard when it comes to the All-Star game and all that. And Jaylen Brown did talk about that. And we're gonna get to Jaylen Brown in a minute too, as well. Talking about like we wish it could be more competitive, but they gotta find a way to try to get the players to play competitively, but also at the same time keep themselves healthy too as well, which is a good quote by Jaylen Brown when talking about that. But he had quite a week.
all the like legends, like I forgot to mention Oscar as well, who grew up in Indianapolis area. But those guys, like the All-Star game was so important because that was one of the premier games advertised to the world. Maybe the only game during the season that was on national television. And so like those games were so important to establishing what the players are getting now, and the owners, what everybody, anyone who worked in the NBA, what everyone's getting financially. A lot of it was built from those guys who went out there and competed in the All-Star games and made that a huge event. And now you kind of fast forward, once like winning a championship became like the one thing we're working towards in the season. Like we're going to rest players, we're going to sit out healthy guys. Once that became popular, it's going to be really hard to then go, but compete in the All Star game, but also take 12 games off during the season. I don't think you can turn that back once. Coach Popovich and some of those guys decided like, hey, we're going to sit guys out during the year. To me that contributed to like any extra basketball. It's like almost there's too much information where guys sit out often now, and it's not always the players who decide that, it's the trainers, it's management, it's a group decision. But it's like there's so much information where it's like, oh, if this guy has a 12% more chance of turning his ankle tonight, well, we better sit him out because we care about playoffs. And so if there's a 2% chance of someone getting injured in an all-star game, we're going to sit him out. And so there's too much information now for them to allow a player to compete in the All-Star game, unless there's some kind of
Mhm.
massive incentive for them to do it, like like in the play-in tournament where it's like everyone's going to make a lot of money if you go compete and win. And the play-in tournament was awesome. um,
Great.
so I feel like they're going to have to like highly incentivize the All-Star game for it to ever come back to, being something that people want to compete in.
And it starts from the top too. It might start with whoever the face of the league is right now is LeBron. It starts with LeBron in terms of just like him, taking that lead and initiative. Like, okay, if I compete, everybody else is going to follow and stuff. So hopefully it can
LeBron is
happen
the
one
face of the
day.
league.
Well, he still technically is at the moment until he kind of goes into retirement, that farewell tour that's going to happen. He said he wants to take the Tim Duncan route. Nah, that's not going to happen. You're getting the Kobe type of farewell tour. So, yeah, it's not going to happen. But, he said the league's in good hands, and all the young stars that he mentioned is going to be the next faces of the league. So, but he still technically is, he's still like the grandpa that people go to. So, but yeah, the grandpa. So, but yeah, so speaking of which, of Jaylen Brown, just the performance that he did in the dunk contest and stuff for him to go to the finals. Whew, that was quite interesting. It was like you said, John, it was an okay dunk contest and stuff like that. Did he get the message across that in terms of like since he competed, like he seems like the type of person that anything he touches, like he wants to be the first guy to do this, that like other all-stars is going to follow his footsteps. So you think he did a good job of sending the message across to other all-stars to try to start competing in the slam dunk contest?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was awesome that he went out there and competed. Whether he finished second or third, I mean, I thought his performance was fine. I mean, I didn't think anyone, blew me away. I thought the best dunk was Mac McClung's very first dunk where he tossed it to himself in the air and like judges weren't loving it. I was like, how did you guys not
Yes,
see what he
yes.
just did? I thought it was kind of downhill from there, but Jaylen, so much props to him just for competing in it because like I mean, no offense to like Jacob Toppin, I thought he did great, but like, no one's there to watch Toppin. Like McClung's built his name. Jaquez is like new and upcoming, but for Jaylen to like as an all-star to go out there and as the highest paid player in the NBA, get out there and do the dunk contest, I thought was really cool, and hopefully guys will follow in his footsteps. But yeah, I had a lot of respect for
I
him
think I think that's
doing
what's
that.
killing the All Star the dunk contest. It's not all stars doing it. It's not that's what's killing it.
It's All Star Weekend, and you got guys from the G League, and there's no disrespect to guys from the G League. They are remarkable players, and I'm happy that they get the opportunity that they do because you put them in the game in a regular NBA game now, they are making a difference, and they are filling up your bench with quality minutes. So this is not a knock to the G League at all. But you come to the All Star game to see All Stars, and lately for the past few years it's just been the other guys, and LeBron won't do it. There's other guys that just won't do it, and they dunk all the time. So I don't know what it is. You can't be that afraid if you don't win. Like, you guys have losing seasons literally every year. One team wins a championship. The rest of you are losers. We're all losers here if we don't win that championship, you know, according to the standard. But have fun. But the All Stars got to do it. And that's what we're missing. Jalen doing it was great. And I'm glad he did. And it looks like he had a lot of fun. I don't think that they were feeling the glove dunk, and I'm like, there was a little bit of irony with the glove dunk because he dunked with his left hand, and all the saying he can't do this with his left hand. So I was like, I got the
And
fun. I was like,
Michael Jackson from Indiana. I think people miss that as well.
I missed that too.
Thank you.
Like so many
I thought it was
things. It
really
was
creative.
has a lot of fun, you know, when he does things and when he competes, he has a lot of fun, and I appreciated seeing that. You know, I don't think you'll ever see Jayson Tatum doing it because I don't think dunking is just his thing. Jalen loves to dunk. That's something that he does, in the game, and he loves to do it. But more all stars got to compete, and I would hope that before LeBron retires, he would do it once. and that would be skyrocket through the roof ratings.
Hmm.
Do it once, and get, some other guys, some other all stars to do it, and just have at it. But it's going to be fun. We've seen LeBron dunk for 20 plus years now. We know he's got it. He's creative. Let's do it. More all stars.
I feel that. I feel that. So speaking of Jason and Jalen and stuff. So before the All Star festivities began and everything, the Celtics faced the Brooklyn Nets twice, back to back games and everything. Which the Boston Celtics, the very first matchup, the Brooklyn played a really good game. There was a very close game, against them, and then the second the second matchup. Yeah, that was whew, I just it was just bad. It was just bad for Brooklyn. I felt bad for them. They fired Jock Vaughn, thank goodness and stuff, but it was really bad. 50-point
Yeah.
blowout. John, any takeaways that you got from the Celtics versus the Nets series?
I think a lot of that was leading up to that game for Brooklyn. Like we already talked about, kind of players resting and stuff. I'm personally not a huge fan of it. I understand it in times, especially if guys are injured. But Brooklyn did that against Milwaukee. Like what was it, a few weeks ago, and their team was doing fine at that point. They were like in the play-in, and they rested half their roster and then took the rest of the guys out after the first quarter, and then players after the game were like, I didn't want to come out, this and that, and they tailspinned after that. And so to me, that was an organizational decision and it's like, why is the Brooklyn Nets resting all your play? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's not fair to the fans, the players who wanted to play, in my opinion. And so I just feel like the Brooklyn has been on a trajectory since then of not just like losing basketball, but also just like a losing organization. Like you're saying we're not going to compete tonight, and then you want the players to then show up and compete the next night when you've already told them not to compete the night before, and then you get to the All-Star break, which is the time when a lot of teams stop competing. Like a lot of guys start to turn it down right before the All-Star break. Um, Milwaukee Bucks against Memphis Grizzlies, like they were already gone. Um, and so I think that's what happened to Brooklyn is they started to turn down the competitiveness weeks ago, and then it kind of culminated in that game against Boston. Where with Boston is too. I mean, you guys have a loaded roster. You have a lot of guys on your bench who can come in and like Peyton Pritchard had a great game. Like you got guys who can score, who can come in, and so even when you're missing a couple of guys, or if a couple guys decide not to show up, you have more. And so they have enough guys that are competing and showing up, and they handled their business big time that night.
Brooklyn. Um, I think Jock Vaughn did it to himself in a way because there were a lot of times when we were all wondering, Cam Thomas, he's just on a tear. And then there would be these games where he would sit him. And I'm like, why? What there was no logical explanation. He wasn't hurt. We didn't hear of any issues. You just chose to sit him. It's just bad, like decision making. This guy, the Cam Thomas, clearly is an NBA scorer. He can score in this league. You have no business sitting him. You have no business. Your team is not competing for, any championship. We know this. You're developing talent. Why are you sitting your talent? And it's just a choice. And I thought when he did that and when he continuously did it, I said, okay, I don't think he gets it. So therefore, I don't think he's going to have that job much longer. You got to play the team that you have. You got to play these guys. But Cam Thomas is going to be a part of either the future of your team, as far as he's going to get a lot of minutes, or he's going to be a part of a hell of a trade. Either way, you have to play him. And he didn't. It's just very up and down. I don't quite understand the Brooklyn Nets as an organization just yet. Especially with the reports of they're going to build around Mikal Bridges, and I'm like, well, okay, but he doesn't move the needle per se, so that doesn't make sense to me. but Brooklyn just, I don't think that they know what they're doing either. But when it comes to Boston, this is a well-oiled machine. They're 55 games and they're still number one in the whole league. They look completely different from last year. Um, where these types of games, they would probably lose last year. They would say, we don't care. It's Brooklyn. And this year, they're like, no, we care. It's Brooklyn. It's Washington. We care. It's Detroit. We care. And that was very different from the previous seasons. And that was something that really pissed me off in the previous season, as well as I know other, basketball fans and Celtics fans. But, you know, it's just business as usual. Brooklyn wasn't going to beat them. They were going to try, I guess. And Boston was supposed to win. They're winning the games they're supposed to win. And that's really what I can say. But I hope Brooklyn figures it out, because it doesn't make a lot of sense over there right now.
A former head coach, great player, Steve Nash, is over there
Yeah.
somewhere on the beach, just relaxing with the Tropicana, just smiling, just like, the demise of the Brooklyn Nets. I am here for it and all that. They fire me, but I am here for the demise. So,
But speaking of Boston, the second half of the season is going to be underway starting Thursday when they face the Chicago
Mhm.
Bulls. And then they got Saturday going up against the New York Knicks, which I can't wait for, because New York Knicks fans is like, we got so much better by getting OG and Bojan and Alec Book and all that, though. But I want to talk about just the goals of the second half of the season for the Boston Celtics, because we know they had a great first half. They had a great first half last year, and then that second half of the season, they kind of worried me in that second half of the season last year. What's y'all's goals and expectations? Even though they have the best record in the league, they are still the best team in the league by far. What's y'all's goals and expectations? What do you see that Boston Celtics need to clean up and need to focus on, so that the second half of the season will go a lot smoother than it did last year, and then they're getting ready for the playoffs?
I'll take this one. Um, you've played 55 games. We pretty much know who you are, and I think you know who you are as well. I think that there are some things to clean up. I am not necessarily as confident in the bench as I think other people are. I There's something about the bench I just really don't like. There's some inconsistencies, with Peyton Pritchard. A lot of the time, there's some inconsistencies with the wing coming off the bench. You have to make a decision. Who's who? You know, I think that Peyton is really good off ball, and when sometimes he struggles creating space in those key moments. And he overly passes. He's overpassing, and when you put a guard in there and say, okay, and I'm going to play off ball, Peyton goes off, because he creates the space on his own. So I'm like, okay, I need Joe to just try to figure that out, because it's going to come back up. And you're going to play a Miami Heat team, very intelligent team, because you have one of the best coaches in the league on that team. He's going to figure that out. Well, this kid, he has a hard time scoring when he, is the primary ball handler. Let me exploit that matchup. That is who the Miami Heat are. I need Joe to just figure that part out. I think that the health of this team is number one, though. Kristaps has to be healthy. He has to. He is literally the reason why I'm so confident in this group this year. Last year, I didn't really care. They were the best team the first half of the season. I could care less. I said this team is full of issues. It's not going to work. Um, this year, Kristaps makes the whole difference. He creates a mismatch in every single game. You've seen him go up against AD. You've seen him go up against Bam. You've seen him go up against Joker, and Joker struggled with him. All these guys struggled with him, every single one, and it's a different kind of look, and they all struggle. He is the difference. And with that being said, Joe also needs to figure out how to get him more involved. With all that said, he's I think averaging 19 and 7. it doesn't matter if you don't look for him in the right moments. If you just keep looking him over, if you continue to take the jump shot when he has the mismatch, it doesn't matter. So I just hope that that is what they clean up. And maybe Joe is watching some film and he's saying, you know what, we don't go to Kristaps enough. So that's what I'm hoping for in the second half of the season. But I am very confident going into the
Goal
playoffs.
should be to, lock down the best record in the NBA because they're in charge of that, and
Mhm.
their home court advantage, and they should lock that in. One thing to clean up, like they're still pretty, I'd say, inconsistent. Like I see them play to their competition a lot. Like when the Pistons came into town and they had to scrape that out. Like I've watched a handful of Boston games, and I feel like every game I watch them, they play to their competition. I'm trying to think the New Orleans game where it's like they making these comebacks at the end because they're more talented than everyone, and so it's like,
Mhm.
well, you don't want to just have to turn it on in the fourth quarter every game. And so kind of even like you mentioned, like with the Miami Heat, like obviously they struggled this year, but they know who they are, and you never want to play them in the playoffs. And I don't think Boston is more talented than everyone, but I don't know if they figured out who they are yet. Their coaching staff is young. I mean, Joe's young himself, and it's I don't want to say he's not a good coach or he's a great coach, but he's young, and you see them not make adjustments or not get up for certain teams, and they haven't proved it in the playoffs yet. And so I mean, obviously they've had a ton of success, but that team is built to win a championship, and until they do that, it's going to be a failure. So, I see them as the favorite. I think one of the huge positives is like they have such a versatile team, and like you mentioned, Porzingis, like yeah, he's been a game changer. But then it's like you got guys like Drew and Jason and Jaylen who can guard five spots on the court, and um, you got shooters like Hauser and Pritchard off the bench, and you just have different lineups you can go to, and that's a game changer in the playoffs because I feel like that's the difference of a lot of teams is like you get matched up with a certain team and you need to go big or you need to go small or you need to. And Boston has the roster that should be able to do that, especially if a player becomes available, they add another piece or two on the free agent end. Um, so I think the key things are going to be you mentioned health as well, but consistency, health, and coaching.
Mhm. I'll just add to that really quick. Another thing I did want to say, they did get Tillman um, from Memphis.
Hmm.
That's a really smart
Yeah,
pickup for.
I
It's
like.
a it's
Good pickup.
it's a
Great
very
pickup.
smart one, and I think that there's going to be an adjustment in that starting lineup going towards the playoffs. I think that you're going to see actually Al Horford find himself back into that starting lineup. He spent the whole season on the bench, and that was because older guy, he shouldn't have to do as much. I think that they handled his minutes very well. I'm wondering, and this is just speculative. I'm wondering if they're going to bring Al up off the bench, start him, and put Porzingis at the four. That's what I'm wondering, and I think that it creates more havoc. And then in return, you might have to send one of those, either Drew or Derek White, on the bench, which would be a great thing, actually. I think for Derek White off the bench, because Jaylen would then get more shots. And the problem I'm having also is Jalen's not getting enough shots because Derek White is, there's a lot of trust there. Love it. Jalen's got to get his shots. So that slight move right there, I think would make them a headache for anyone they play.
Y'all make really great valid points, and those are like points I'm thinking about, in terms of what Celtics need to do. Another thing I think they really need to do is try to balance the threes and the mid range and in the paint because we shoot too many threes. There'll be games where we shoot ourselves out the game and a team will just beat us because we shot too many threes. We're not driving, like you mentioned, John, the Pistons game.
just night and day the difference. The first half we were shooting so many threes, we wasn't hitting. Detroit was whooping our behinds, and then in the second half we wasn't shooting that many threes. We started going into the paint, we started going into the hole, and like everything just kind of changed, and they made a comeback and went into the overtime and all that. So if they can find a balance of the 3-point shot and driving into the hole and stuff, and they're really good of moving the ball around. They're a really good enough team to do that. And if they can, focus themselves defensively, don't take really any plays off and all that,
Mhm.
I think they'll be just fine. And also, one of the things that we struggled last year was those late game situations when it's clutch time, when it's crunch time, when it's the last 5 minutes of the game. What do you do? I've seen that they're more poised in the first half of the season than they were last year. So are they going to be more poised in the second half of the season? They definitely got to work on that third quarter.
Yeah.
They have to, because that third quarter, they have a great first half, but when that third quarter comes, it just seems like they just put their talents in the bag, and then they just go back and get the talents back, their talent back, and they start playing in late in the third quarter into the fourth. So just things like that, for Boston to contain the best record, and then probably see Joe Mazzulla winning Coach of the Year, or arguably, and maybe we see Brad Stevens win Executive of the Year, arguably though. So we just have to wait and see. One last question too, as well. Jayson Tatum made some comments earlier about, I think Malika Andrews was
Mhm.
asking who you think is the best player in the league and stuff. And Jason Tatum himself said it's him. He said, I feel like when I step on the floor, I feel like I'm the best player in the league. And people that's not Jason Tatum fans and stuff, they're gonna look at it and be like, well, you haven't done anything. You haven't won the MVP. Look, you choked in 2022 in the NBA finals and
Mhm.
stuff like that. For me as a Boston Celtic to hear those comments, I loved it. I loved it because sometimes you can't really say, well, yeah, I think this such and such is the best player and all that. If you're confident and you're confident with yourself and all that, and you admit to yourself that you feel like you're the best player in the game, then that's good. But also, it's going to have a target on your back. You have to prove that you're the best player in the game. You have to really prove it to everybody, or prove it to yourself too as well. So what y'all think of Jason Tatum's comments?
I could care less that he said it. I'll be honest with you. He said he's the best player. I mean, okay, good, good for you. Like, go out there and and compete. Go out there and show why you said that. Don't go out there and rest on shooting 10 threes and not going to your post up game. That's not what makes you the best player in the league. If that's what you're saying, go out there and wreak havoc. His aggression is what sometimes he's missing. Go out there and do that and show that. I have no problem with it, because you're not going to call yourself, if you're a singer, you're not going to say, well, I'm one of the worst singers in the in the genre. I'm going to say I'm one of the best, or I'm the best. You're not going to say that. If if you, whatever you do, you're going to say you're the best at it. Sometimes you speak things into existence, and it's a positive thing, and sometimes you actually believe it, because then you have confidence in yourself. I have no problem with it. Jason just has to go out there and play, and that's what he has to do, and lead your team. You're the leader. They follow you. Go lead. And go prove it.
Yeah, no, that's well said. Yeah, I'm down with it. He should feel like he's the best. I don't think he's proved yet that he's the best player in the NBA, but he has proved that he can be the best player on the court any given night, and
Yes.
and that's enough to like put him in the conversation to be the best player. And I think if the Celtics do win a title, people will start talking more about him as the best player in the game and as an MVP candidate. And so him putting his name in there, I respect it. Like, even, I was with Portland Trailblazers, and young Damian Lillard, when he was getting snubbed from All-Star games, he was like, no, I should be in the MVP conversation. Like, that's my goal, and we liked it. I'm like, yeah, like bring attention to yourself, because the media is not going to bring it to you. Same with like Donovan Mitchell came out this week, said, no, I should be top 3. And then I was like, he's not wrong. I was like,
Hmm.
Cleveland, unreal what they turned around this year, and that was Donovan that did that. but he wasn't getting any MVP buzz. So I don't, yeah, with Tatum, I don't mind. It's like, because I know he believes it as well, that he's as good
Hmm.
or can beat anyone on the court any given night. So I think goes back to consistency once he starts doing it every night. But yeah, he's right there.
Wants to win, just real quick, JP. If Tatum wants to win an MVP, there's a couple things that he has to do that the others do before him that are leading. And that's these really big games. They happen consistently. You know, so Luca constantly 36, 10, and 9, 30 or 34. 12 and 8. You see, and it's constant, constant. Now, do I think Luca necessarily should be in front of him? No. As an eighth seed, no. You know, um, but he's an extraordinary player. He's very consistent. Joel Embiid, I can depend on him to score a certain way and a certain amount per night. The assists are going to come. The rebounds are going to come. There's a consistency. I just know when he hits the floor. Unless it's the playoffs. But the regular season, I know he's going to turn out. The thing about Tatum, he's an elite rebounder. I think he's an underrated player in a way when I say this, but I think he's an elite rebounder as well for a wingman. He should average close to 10 rebounds, 32 points, 6 or 7 assists. If he does that, about 30, 32 points, 10 rebounds, 6 or 7 assists, you'll see him take an MVP from somebody who you thought was going to get it. If he just does that right there consistently a season.
I feel that. Thank goodness he didn't say that he was fine in the East. So I'm very happy that I'm very happy he didn't say that. So we're good. We're good on that. John, we really appreciate you coming on the Celtics Rewind. Just your knowledge and just like your analysis and the stories, which is awesome. And we really do appreciate you. And like I said, earlier on the podcast, the class that I took about the trade deadline, bringing in, guests, giving us like advice and asking questions, and then just being able to feel like an NBA GM for like a week was just phenomenal. And that's getting the game one on one. Definitely love what y'all doing. Can you explain more about getting the game one on one? What's the focus? How did you build it up?
It was awesome to meet you and have you in the course. And yeah, so I worked 15 seasons as started out on the video coordinator on the coaching staff, and then moved to the personnel side and was more of a video scout. And one of the things I did for the Trailblazers was hire interns. And so I would go through hundreds of applications and get all kinds of emails and LinkedIn and thousands of messages, people who want to work in the NBA. And as you filter through those, obviously you can't respond to 1,000 people or 1,000 resumes. But I started like there's started to become this like which people you're going to interview. They got to have like this, and this on their resume, and people would email you, and there's only so many emails you can respond to. So there's only same thing as certain emails you would respond to. And so my first article I wrote was kind of just to help people who are trying to work in the NBA. It was like three things you need to get a job in the NBA or get an internship in the NBA. And I posted on LinkedIn before I even really used LinkedIn, and it like kind of went viral. And I was like, oh wow, like people really like this. And so I followed up with 3 ways to keep an NBA internship, and then that went crazy. And so then once it was actually during the COVID seasons. I was working from home. So I started like doing more writing and stuff as well. And then started getting the game 101. So then once, I got let go from the Blazers during post Neil Olshey era, all of that stuff. Um, so after that, I got let go, and I needed a break from basketball in general. So I didn't really watch basketball, but I kept writing these articles, and then the NBA draft was coming around, and I do love the NBA draft. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to just host an NBA draft course and bring in, NBA personnel, and we'll have Q&As with the students, and then they'll be in their front offices, and we'll have a draft at the end. And so we kind of created this course, and like it was like 1 week before we started, like I launched it, and like we ended up with like 35 students, and it was like we just all had a blast. It was so much fun. Bjorn Zetterberg and Mike Weisenberg, some of my guys who were helping out, and Caleb Canales was like our first guest speaker, and he's been on a lot of ours. So we just had all these guys. We started bringing in like NBA trainers and personnel and scouts, and we do like Q&A. It's kind of the format we're doing now. And so it went so well. Then we did a summer league crash course, then we did a training camp, and then we did a trade deadline course that I met you at. So that kind of became our core 4 courses that we do. And so, yeah, I still, I have a Substack. So it's gettingthegame101.substack.com. And I write weekly articles, still, helping students who want to work in the NBA. And then, we host the courses. And then here in a month, we'll relaunch our podcast or start a podcast and relaunch our website and just kind of building it up from here. So it's been exciting, and I'll be here, and thanks for being a part of it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Definitely, if y'all listening, please follow Getting the Game 101 on any social media platform that you have. That, like I said, they are really dope. I took the class. Thank you to Danny Thompson. Shout out to him. Great class. I mean, I have nothing but positive things to say about Getting the Game 101. So I recommend you, whenever a class comes, you better sign up for it if you really want to try to get into basketball and all that. And if you really wanted to follow, and if you like the articles, they make amazing articles. So shout out to y'all. We appreciate you coming on too as well. Nat, I always appreciate you as my co-host and all that. Let's get ready for the second half of the season. I cannot wait. We bleed green and all that. No Spike Lee available for any Boston Celtics games and all that. So I can't wait till Saturday. I can't wait till Saturday. So this is episode 15 of the Celtics Rewind. I'm JP, the franchise. She's Nat, the GM. That's John Walski in the Game 101. And we out of here, y'all. Peace, y'all.